It's strange how your entire life can change in an instant. One click, one notification, one moment of curiosity that you can never take back. 3 weeks ago, I still believed in the life we'd built. Now I'm not sure what's real anymore. I remember the exact moment everything changed. It was a Tuesday night, just after 11. Sarah was already asleep upstairs, exhausted after leading the church food drive all day. My angel, everyone called her. The perfect mother to our 2 boys. The devoted wife who packed my lunch every morning with little notes hidden inside. The community volunteer who never missed a chance to help others. I was downstairs in the kitchen, mindlessly scrolling through emails on my laptop while nursing a beer I didn't really want. That's when I got the notification. See, I'd been trying to fix our family budget. Money had been tight isn't the right word. Different. Our accounts had strange patterns I couldn't quite track. Small withdrawals, irregular deposits. When I asked Sarah about it, she'd smile that smile, the one that made her eyes crinkle at the corners, and say, "Just a little side project, honey. Nothing to worry about." I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? In 15 years of marriage, she'd never given me a reason not to. But that night, I got an email notification. Someone had used our shared family iPad to sign into an account. The name caught my eye immediately. Heaven's Sweet Angel. Most people would have ignored it. A spam email, probably. But something in my gut twisted. Maybe it was the way Sarah had been guarding her phone lately. Maybe it was how she'd started taking these prayer retreats, 1 weekend every month. Or maybe it was just that after 15 years, you develop a sixth sense when something isn't right. I clicked the link, and just like that, my world collapsed. The profile page loaded, and there she was. My Sarah, my angel. Except she wasn't just my angel anymore. For $19.99 a month, she could be anyone's. The room started spinning. I remember gripping the edge of the kitchen counter, leaving sweaty fingerprints on the granite we'd spent 3 months saving up for. The beer bottle slipped from my other hand, foaming across the floor tiles Sarah had hand-selected from that boutique store in the next town over. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't process what I was seeing. It wasn't explicit, not on the main page. Just Sarah. My Sarah, in lingerie I'd never seen before. The kind she'd always said was unnecessary and not her style. She was posed on what looked like a hotel bed, smiling that same smile she gave me on our wedding day. Underneath were the stats. 127 posts, 1,300 subscribers. Member since 8 months ago. 8 months. 8 months while I'd been working overtime to cover what I thought was inflation and rising grocery costs. 8 months of her telling me she was leading extra Bible studies on Thursday nights. 8 months of me falling asleep alone, thinking she was downstairs preparing Sunday school lessons. I scrolled down to the comments. Men, strangers, writing things about my wife's body that made my stomach turn. And Sarah, responding, flirting, using words and phrases I'd never heard from her lips in all our years together. Hope you enjoyed the private video, baby. There's more where that came from. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. Twice. When I came back, trembling and sweating, the screen was still there. Still waiting. Still real. I should have closed the laptop. Should have marched upstairs and confronted her. Should have demanded answers. Screamed. Broken something. Instead, I did something much worse. I subscribed. The next morning, I watched Sarah make breakfast for our boys. Chocolate chip pancakes, James's favorite. She was humming that worship song from Sunday's service, her hair pulled back in a messy bun, wearing the modest pajamas her mother had given her for Christmas. "Morning, sleepyhead," she smiled, kissing my cheek as I entered the kitchen. Coffee's fresh. I couldn't look her in the eye, couldn't trust myself to speak. Just nodded and poured a cup I had no intention of drinking. "You okay, honey?" she asked, momentarily turning away from the stove. "You look pale." "Fine," I managed. "Just didn't sleep well. Poor baby." She reached out to touch my forehead, checking for fever. The same gentle touch she used on our boys when they were sick. Her wedding ring caught the morning light, sending prisms dancing across the ceiling. Maybe you're coming down with something. Maybe I was. Maybe this was all some fever dream. But the weight of my phone in my pocket, now with the OnlyFans app installed, felt all too real. "Tommy has his soccer game at 4, she continued, flipping a pancake with practiced ease. "And I need to run by the church to drop off those donation forms before that. Can you pick up James from piano?" The normalcy was surreal, like watching a movie of our life where one character had been secretly replaced. "Sarah," I started, not knowing where the sentence was headed. "Hmm?" She turned, spatula in hand, eyebrows raised expectantly. The boys thundered down the stairs, saving me from whatever I might have said. "Mom! Dad! Tommy took my charger again!" "Did not. I was just borrowing it." And just like that, we were back in our routine. Sarah mediating between the boys. Me pretending to read the news while secretly watching her. This stranger I'd apparently been married to for 15 years. As she bent down to wipe syrup from James's chin, she caught me staring. "What?" she laughed, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Nothing," I said. "Just love you." Her smile was radiant. Perfect. "Love you too, silly." And the worst part? I think she meant it. That night, after the boys were asleep, I locked myself in our home office with my laptop and a bottle of whiskey I'd bought on the way home from work. Sarah was in the living room, leading her weekly online women's Bible study group. I could hear her voice drifting up the stairs, passionate and earnest as she discussed the virtues of Proverbs 31. A virtuous wife who can find, for her price is far above rubies. The irony wasn't lost on me. With shaking hands, I logged into the account I'd created. Heaven's Sweet Angels page loaded, showing new content since last night. A private message waited in my inbox. "Thanks for subscribing. Dark Knight." 447. I always love new followers. "What brought you to my page?" I stared at the message for a long time. She was actively recruiting, engaging, building. What? A customer base? A community? I felt sick again, but forced myself to stay focused. I needed evidence, needed to understand. Maybe there was some explanation that wouldn't destroy everything we'd built. I clicked through her profile methodically, cataloging everything. Most of the content was suggestive but not explicit, at least not on the main feed. But there were special requests mentioned. Private videos for sale, custom content. The dates aligned perfectly with her prayer retreats. Once a month, like clockwork, there would be a surge of hotel room content. Always the same generic room. Always the same weekend she told me she was on a women's spiritual retreat in the mountains. I thought about all the times she'd come home from those retreats looking refreshed, peaceful. "It's amazing what stepping away from the world can do for your soul," she'd say. What had she really been doing? Who had she really been with? I took another shot of whiskey, feeling it burn all the way down. There was a knock at the door. "Honey?" Sarah's voice. "Are you coming to bed soon? It's almost midnight." I closed the laptop so quickly I nearly broke it. "Yeah," I called back, voice strained. "Just finishing up some work emails." "Don't be too long," she said softly. I could picture her on the other side of the door, probably wearing those flannel pajamas, hair wet from her evening shower. "I miss you." After her footsteps faded, I reopened the laptop and replied to her message. "I've heard you're an angel worth worshipping." I hit send before I could think better of it. 3 days passed. 3 days of living this double life where I went to work, came home, kissed my wife, helped my kids with homework, all while carrying this burning secret. 3 nights of waiting until Sarah was asleep before checking for replies from heaven's sweet angel. She'd responded almost immediately. "Well, aren't you sweet? I try to be heavenly in all ways. What would make your experience more divine?" I hadn't replied. Couldn't bring myself to continue the charade. But I kept checking, kept watching, kept collecting evidence like a detective building a case against the love of his life. On Thursday, her Bible study night, I followed her. I told myself it was to confirm my suspicions, but deep down, I think part of me was desperate to be wrong. Desperate to discover she really was going to Susan Miller's house with the other church wives to discuss scripture over tea and cookies. I parked across the street from the community center where the Bible study was supposedly held. At 7 p.m. exactly, Sarah pulled into the parking lot in our family SUV. She was wearing a modest blouse and skirt, the same outfit I'd watched her select that morning. Her Bible was tucked under her arm as she walked inside. I waited, breath held, heart pounding. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was all some elaborate misunderstanding. At 7:45 p.m., she emerged, still carrying her Bible. But instead of leaving, she walked to her car, opened the trunk, and pulled out a small overnight bag I didn't recognize. Then she disappeared back inside the building. At 8:15 p.m., she came out again. But it wasn't my Sarah anymore. Her hair was down now, styled in loose waves. The modest blouse and skirt were gone, replaced by a tight dress that hugged curves I hadn't fully appreciated in years. Heels I'd never seen before in war. Makeup that was subtly, but distinctly more dramatic than her usual style. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. She got into our SUV and drove away. I followed at a safe distance, feeling like I was starring in some terrible noir film. She drove for 20 minutes, finally pulling into the parking lot of a hotel just off the highway, the same generic chain hotel I'd recognized from her photos. I watched from the parking lot as she checked in, overnight bag in hand, watched as she rode the elevator to the 4th floor, watched as the light came on in a room facing the parking lot. And then I sat there, engine off, stomach in knots, as the shadow behind the curtains moved. Was someone else in there with her? Was she alone? Was she filming? Broadcasting? Selling pieces of herself to strangers online, while I sat in a cold car, watching our marriage disintegrate in real time? At midnight, I drove home, crawled into our empty bed, and stared at the ceiling until dawn. She came home the next morning while I was getting the boys ready for school, looking fresh and peaceful as always. She kissed each of us on the forehead. "How was Bible study?" I asked, voice carefully neutral. "So good," she smiled, setting down her overnight bag. "We really dug deep into Corinthians. Susan says hi, by the way." The lie slid off her tongue so smoothly. How long had she been doing this? What else in our life together wasn't real? "That's nice," I said. And then, because I couldn't help myself, "You look tired, though. Did you get enough sleep?" Something. A flicker of what? Guilt? Anxiety? Crossed her face so quickly I almost missed it. "Oh, you know how it is when the spirit moves." She laughed lightly. "We ended up talking until late. I might need an extra coffee today." I handed her a mug I'd already prepared. "Already got you covered, Angel." She beamed at me. That same smile that had once made my heart race now made my stomach drop. "What would I do without you?" she said. I was beginning to wonder the same thing about her. On Saturday morning, I received a notification on my phone. A private message from Heaven's Sweet Angel to Dark Knight, 447. I noticed you haven't responded to my message, but you're still visiting my page daily. I love shy followers too. I'm planning a special live session next weekend during my retreat. Very exclusive, very intimate. Only for my most dedicated supporters. Premium tier membership required. $49.99 month. Would you like to know more? Next weekend. Her monthly prayer retreat. I sat on our back porch, watching Sarah gardening with the boys. She was teaching Tommy how to tell which tomatoes were ripe enough to pick. Her hands, the same hands that typed those messages to strangers, were gentle as they guided our son's smaller ones. James ran over to show her a worm he'd found, and she made a big show of being impressed instead of disgusted. The three of them laughed together, dirt on their knees, sun on their faces, the perfect mother, the perfect wife, the perfect fraud. I upgraded my subscription to premium tier. The week crawled by. I moved through each day like a ghost, going through the motions of normal life, while my mind remained fixated on the approaching weekend. Sarah noticed something was off. How could she not? 15 years of marriage creates a connection that's hard to fake, on either side. Are you sure you're okay with me going on retreat this weekend? She asked Wednesday night as we got ready for bed. You've seemed distant lately. I can cancel if you need me here. The irony was almost too much. Here she was, offering to cancel her secret life for the sake of our real one. No, I said, avoiding her eyes in the bathroom mirror as we brushed our teeth side by side. You need your spiritual time. The boys and I will be fine. She rinsed and spit, then turned to me, wrapping her arms around my waist and resting her head against my back. You're the best husband. You know that? So supportive of my relationship with God. I nearly choked on my toothpaste. What are you boys planning while I'm gone? She asked, voice muffled against my t-shirt. Pizza and movies Friday, I said. Maybe the Science Museum Saturday if the weather's bad. Sounds perfect. She squeezed me tighter. I'm so blessed to have you. I said nothing, just rinsed my mouth and turned around to hold her. We stood there in our bathroom, the one we'd renovated together 3 summers ago, arguing playfully over tile colors and faucet styles, and I breathed in the scent of her shampoo. How could someone feel simultaneously so familiar and so foreign? I love you, she whispered. I love you too, I replied automatically, and the worst part was, I still did. Friday afternoon came. I stood in the driveway with the boys, waving as Sarah backed out in the SUV, overnight bag packed with God knows what beside her. Be good for Daddy, she called through the open window. I'll be back Sunday evening with treats. The boys cheered at the mention of treats. I forced a smile and waved until her car disappeared around the corner. Inside, I ordered pizza as promised, set up a movie marathon, and tried to be present with my sons. But my mind was elsewhere, counting down the hours until 9 p.m., when Heaven's Sweet Angel had scheduled her exclusive live event. After I tucked the boys into bed, I locked myself in the office again. Hands trembling, I logged in and waited. The notification popped up right on time. Heaven's Sweet Angel is now live. Join her for an exclusive heavenly experience. I clicked, heart pounding in my ears. And there she was, my wife, in a hotel room, the same chain, possibly even the same room I'd watched her enter last week. She was wearing lingerie I'd never seen, saying things I'd never heard, doing things for this invisible audience that she'd never done for me. But it wasn't the lingerie, or the poses, or the practiced seductive smile that broke me. It was the moment she looked directly into the camera and said, "You know what really turns me on? The freedom. Being here. Being this version of myself that nobody in my real life gets to see. It's like having a secret superpower." She laughed. A laugh I recognized from our first date, our wedding day, the births of our children. Sometimes I think about what would happen if anyone from my perfect little life found out about this side of me. My husband, my church friends. Can you imagine the scandal? She leaned closer to the camera, dropping her voice to a conspiratorial whisper. But that's what makes this so exciting, isn't it? Our little secret. I closed the laptop. Couldn't watch anymore. The evidence I'd been collecting suddenly seemed pointless. What was I going to do? Confront her with printouts? Demand an explanation? File for divorce? The thought of our boys, of their world shattering the way mine had, made me physically ill. I went to our bedroom, the room we'd shared for 15 years, and looked around at the life we'd built. Family photos on the dresser. Sarah's reading glasses on her nightstand next to her actual Bible, worn from use. Pages marked with colorful tabs. The quilt her grandmother had made us as a wedding gift. Was any of it real? All of it? None of it. I sat on the edge of the bed, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I cried. Sunday evening arrived with the sound of Sarah's SUV in the driveway. The boys raced to the door, eager for the promised treats and their mother's hugs. I stood in the kitchen, hands braced on the counter, still not sure what I was going to do. "Mommy's home!" Tommy shouted, throwing open the front door. "There are my handsome men!" Sarah's voice, warm and genuine, the rustle of bags, the sound of kisses being planted on small foreheads. I took a deep breath and turned around just as she entered the kitchen, boys dancing around her legs like excited puppies. "And there's my handsome big man," she smiled, coming to me with open arms. "Did you survive without me?" I let her embrace me, breathing in her familiar scent, now mixed with the faint trace of hotel soap. "Boys," I said, keeping my voice steady, "can you go up to your rooms for a few minutes? I need to talk to Mom alone." Sarah's body tensed against mine. The boys, oblivious to the sudden shift in atmosphere, groaned but complied, thundering up the stairs. Slowly, she pulled back from our embrace, searching my face. "What's wrong?" I looked at her, really looked at her, the woman I'd married, the mother of my children, the pillar of our community, the secret online performer. "I know, Sarah." 3 simple words, but they changed everything. Her expression flickered through confusion, then realization, then fear. Her hand went to her throat, a nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times over the years. "No what?" she asked, but her voice had already changed. Defensive. Preparing. I didn't answer, just pulled out my phone, opened the app, and showed her the screen with Dark Knight 447 subscription to Heaven's Sweet Angel. The color drained from her face. She reached for the counter to steady herself. "How long?" she whispered. "About 3 weeks," I said. "But the better question is, how long for you?" She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they were filled with tears. Almost a year. A year. Longer than I'd thought. A year of lies. Why? The question came out more broken than I'd intended. She sank into a kitchen chair, suddenly looking exhausted. Smaller. It started as a joke, almost. A dare to myself. She stared at her hands, the same hands that had typed those messages, filmed those videos. I was feeling invisible. Do you know what it's like to be seen as just one thing your whole life? Perfect Sarah. Angel Sarah. Church Sarah. Mom Sarah. Wife Sarah. She looked up at me, eyes pleading for understanding I wasn't sure I could give. I wanted to feel seen, different, powerful. A tear slipped down her cheek. It was supposed to be once, just to prove I could. But then the money started coming in, and the attention. and it felt good to have this secret thing that was just mine. Our family budget, I said flatly. The strange deposits. She nodded miserably. I was saving it. For the boys' college fund. Mostly. A laugh escaped me, harsh and humorless. Funding their education by taking off your clothes for strangers. How noble. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. That's not fair. Fair? I was suddenly furious. You want to talk about fair? Was it fair to lie to me every day for a year? To make me think I was going crazy when I noticed the money discrepancies? I never cheated on you, she interrupted desperately. It was just online. Just performance. It wasn't real. Wasn't real? I echoed. The hotel rooms weren't real? The lingerie wasn't real? The things you said, the things you did? Of course they were real, she said, voice rising. But they weren't. They weren't me. Not the real me. Then who the hell is the real you, Sarah? Because I thought I knew. For 15 years, I thought I knew. She buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Most of me was still too angry, too hurt. The boys can't know, she finally whispered through her fingers. Please. And there it was, the one thing we could both agree on. No, I said, they can't. We sat in silence for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The sound of the boys playing upstairs seemed to come from another universe, one where their mother wasn't a stranger, and their father wasn't a broken man. What happens now? She finally asked, looking up with red-rimmed eyes. It was the question I'd been asking myself for 3 weeks, the one I still didn't have an answer to. I don't know, I admitted. I just don't know. She nodded slowly, accepting this non-answer. I'll delete the account. Right now. Everything. It's too late for that. Maybe, she said. But it's a start. She reached across the table, hesitantly offering her hand. After a moment's hesitation, I took it. Her palm was cold, clammy, frightened. I never stopped loving you, she said quietly. Not for a single day. I wanted to tell her it didn't matter. That love without trust is just a word. That she'd taken everything I believed about our life together and turned it into a lie. Instead, I heard myself say, I never stopped loving you either. And that was the cruelest part of all, because it was true. We sat there in our kitchen, the heart of the home we'd built together, holding hands across a divide that seemed both unbridgeable and strangely intimate. Two people who had shared everything and nothing, who knew each other completely and not at all. Mom! Dad! Tommy's voice called from upstairs. Can we come down now? Sarah looked at me, a question in her eyes. What would we tell them? How would we act? Could we pretend everything was normal when nothing would ever be normal again? I took a deep breath. Yeah, buddy, I called back. Come on down. As the thunder of excited footsteps approached, Sarah squeezed my hand, a gesture that had meant so many things over 15 years. I'm here. I understand. I'm sorry. We'll get through this. I squeezed back, not sure what I meant by it, not sure of anything anymore, except that whatever happened next would be the hardest thing we'd ever faced. Mom, can we have the treats now? James bounced into the kitchen, Tommy right behind him. Sarah wiped her eyes quickly and turned to our sons with a smile that almost looked genuine. Of course, I got your favorites. And just like that, we were pretending, both of us, for their sake. I watched her with our boys, this woman I thought I knew, this stranger I still loved, and wondered which version of her was the real one. The perfect wife and mother? The online performer? Or someone else entirely? Someone neither of us had met yet? I didn't know. But as I stood in our kitchen, Watching my family that both was and wasn't what I'd always believed, I realized that someday I would have to find out. Because secrets, like angels, never stay hidden forever.